जी, अस्सलाम वालेकुम आज़म साहब।
वालेकुम सलाम, हाउ आर यू?
I'm fine, sir. How are you?
बिल्कुल ठीक ठाक।
Thank you for taking the time out to talk to me,
नो,
Azam साहब.
माय प्लेजर, माय प्लेजर।
जी, Azam साहब. So, for the record first, if you can just walk us through uh, the different facets of AJ, Azam Jamil, because there's just so much that you have achieved over years that, I was just going through your profile. And from music to tourism to being a motivational speaker, you have done it all.
uh, Actually, on the professional side, there's been only hospitality and tourism. On my personal side, there'd be many things. And I've come from a breed, or I'm cut from a piece of cloth which believes that even your hobbies you need to do at an excellent level. So when I played tennis, I became the national champion. When I started to fly, I became a commercial pilot. When I started to play music, I became a kind of a semi-professional musician. And then I became an actor and I starred in television plays. So, and then I became a trainer. And then for the last 30 years, I've been training people. So, all this is on the hobby side. But I've done my hobbies well that people actually think that these are my professions, and they are not. My profession has mostly been, for the last 45 years, hospitality and tourism.
And Azam Saab, you were recently also the special advisor to the Prime Minister on tourism. So let's begin from there, and then we will touch upon all the other facets of your personality. Uh, Tell me a little bit about the tourism potential of Pakistan as you see it, because we hear a lot about the natural beauty with which the country is endowed, but have we been able to exploit it to its max? Obviously not. Why do you think that is? And what do you think has been happening to our tourism industry?
I'm I come with a slightly different belief in tourism. And everybody whenever people talk of tourism, they always talk of demand. They always talk of more people coming. And I've been saying for the last 25, 30 years that demand is not our problem. Supply is our problem. We do not have our house in order. A country which has 230 million people, why do you need more people? You can't handle the people who live here. And you want people from the outside world to come in. And by all means, there's nothing wrong with a foreigner coming in. But first, deal with your own people. पहले अपनों को तो संभाल लो भाई. And
Hmm.
our problem is that, I told the prime minister, also the then prime minister, that our house is not in order. And if your house is not in order, the beauty that you've spoken about doesn't matter. If you arrive in Skardu with your family in the middle of the night and you come into your room and you're hit with dirty sheets and a filthy bathroom, what are you going to say that K2 is 8,611 meters high? Will that solve your problem? So, natural, beautiful assets only work if they are backed up by professional services, if they are backed up by, you know, professional facilities. Only then does this beauty work. Beauty on its own will never work because what will you do with beauty if you don't have proper roads, if you don't have proper lodging, if you don't have proper food, if you don't have proper medical facilities? So, yes, Pakistan is an amazingly beautiful country and we have a lot of assets, but you cannot depend on physical assets. You need to back it up with professional services. And we are not. a
Hmm.
professionally proficient tourism nation. We are not, you know, and we believe in myths. And one myth that we believe in, that we have 5,000 years of hospitality culture. That's rubbish, you know. And let me tell you why it's rubbish. You ask anybody on the street in Pakistan who your neighbor is, and that person won't even know the name of their neighbor. Yes, we are very friendly with friends and family, but tourism is not being friendly with friends and family. Tourism is being friendly with strangers.
Right.
The one thing that you have common in tourists, they're all strangers. You don't know them. So हम लोग, we are very friendly and everybody, we feed people to death. But Harun, we only feed those people who we like. And tourism is not about, looking after people that you like. Tourism is looking after everybody. So when I was with the government, when I was special assistant of the prime minister, I tried to do my best to ensure that we get our house in order.
Hmm.
And that's very easily said than done. For example, people used to message me on Twitter and say, KG, Balakot Naran road is broken. And then I used to get another message in about 3 weeks saying, we told you that the Balakot Naran is broken, but you've got done nothing about it. And people need to understand that it's not that simple. There are many government agencies involved, there's money involved. The tourism division or the ministry in Islamabad doesn't have bulldozers and funds and people. Tomorrow I'll launch them and they'll go start fixing roads. We have to go approach the National Highway Authority, or we have to approach the local government. They turn around and say, we are busy doing some other project, which is top priority. We can't leave that project. Then they come up and say that it's going to cost you 4 billion rupees. The tourism division does not have 4 billion rupees. So we have to go to the finance division. So it's not that simple. All these solutions are quite complex, but this is not an excuse not to do them. You still have to deliver. That's what governments are for, to find a way to do this. And I think Pakistan tourism has a very, very bright future. I think we have amazing potential. At the same time, I think we need to be very, very clear in our head that we need to start with the basics. Uh, don't go running after the Gora. Wo aa jayega. But if you give him a dirty bathroom, guess what's going to happen? He's going to blog it all over the world. And and people used to say our tourism used to be better 15, 20 years ago. That's not true. The only thing different was, Harun, that 20 years ago, if you had an issue, nobody knew about it because there was no social media. Today,
Interesting.
you walk into a hotel in Gilgit and you see a cockroach. You take a picture, and before the hotel manager knows about it, it's on Instagram.
Right.
So the information spread is very rapid. So things were as bad, except that nobody knew about it. Today, you go into a restaurant in Karachi or Islamabad, and if the food is not to your liking, in 5 minutes, half of Pakistan knows about it. So there is that difference. The other thing, Arun, is that we are a 5 or 7,000-year-old civilization, and we are depending too much on our assets. My belief always has been that if you are a 7,000-year-old civilization, then you must have 7,000-year-old stories to tell. Why don't you tell the stories?
Right.
You know, you go to the Lahore fort and they'll tell you that this is the Sheesh Mahal and this is the Diwani Am. So that's fine. That's your asset. But do you know the amount of stories that are linked with the Lahore fort or the Badshahi Mosque or any other location? So
Right.
I think we need to learn, we need to research, and stories sell. If you take Egypt for an example, you go down the Nile and at night you don't see anything. You don't see any pyramid, but all night that guy will be telling you stories about Cleopatra and about, and we do not tell our stories. So I think our assets are fine, but we need a historical perspective to those assets. We tell people that K2 is, the second highest mountain in the world. But, I am a very avid mountaineer fan. My son is a mountaineer. And I read a lot of books. And the amount of stories and the amount of books written on K2 are phenomenal. So why don't we tell those stories? Who climbed K2? When did they climb? When was the first ascent? How many people died on K2? So that approach of pure physical asset, that needs to be coupled with a lot of stories. So
Okay,
those are my brief views. If there's any question, I'll be happy to
sure,
answer.
sure. So, Egypt, tell me, are you saying that domestic tourism should be focused upon more, at least in the initial stages, then trying to bring in international tourists? Because one would argue that international tourists bring in money. I mean, I would go to Swat or I would go to Murray, and I would be appalled if the hotel owner asks me कि भाई ये 5,000 का कमरा है या 10,000 का कमरा है, because I know कि ये कमरा जो है ये 4,000 का या 6,000 का मिला करता है. So how do you view that? Because it's all about money that comes in with the industry. So if the industry is just sort of circulating or percolating the same money, pot of money, then what's the point? Because we have to bring in international tourists and foreign exchange.
This is the biggest myth in Pakistan. Let me tell you very frankly, the foreign tourist doesn't spend money. He will survive on a can of baked beans all day. A Pakistani family will order kadai murgi 5 times a day. They are the ones who do the shopping. They are the ones who spend money. The foreign tourist, he is not a big spender. He never has been. The big spender is your foreign businessman. And he spends money because he's on an expense account. That's why he spends money. He doesn't spend his own money. He's representing some company. Now, I was involved 20 years with the Serena chain, and the Serena is 20 paces away from the diplomatic enclave. How many diplomats come and eat at the Serena? You have a Thai restaurant in the Marriott. How many people from the Thai embassy come and eat there? Hardly any.
Right.
Because these people are not big spenders. So this is a very, very big myth. Okay, when the foreigner comes, he will throw dollars in your face. He will not. The Pakistani will throw money in your face, because the Pakistani always historically likes to spend. When a Pakistani family goes to Murray, they will buy stuff they never need. Well, they'll buy a soti, they'll buy a stick, they'll buy a cap, they'll buy all kinds of these funny things because they are in the shopping mode. So the question is that, yes, you want foreigners, nobody is against them. But remember, Harun, the foreigner is the cherry on the cake. You got to make your cake first. And once you make your cake, then by all means, put the cherry there. Let me give you an example of the Taj Mahal. In India, about 800,000 foreigners come to the Taj Mahal every year, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big amount, right? That's a big number, 800,000. But what people don't realize is that 9 million Indians go to the Taj Mahal. That's 90 lakh people. So that's your bread and butter. The foreigner will just come and add the icing on the cake. So if you start running after foreigners, you won't get the numbers. But Pakistan, now if you call the Shigar Fort in Skardu right now and ask for a room, you won't get a room till August. All these hotels are booked through the summer. So you don't have a demand problem. you have a supply problem. That are the hotels clean? Are the roads safe? Are the medical facilities? Agar barish ho jati hai, does the flight get cancelled? Does your holiday get destroyed? So yes, foreigners are always a very welcome addition to your foreign exchange earning, but they are not that much in number. You
Mm.
know, this is a very big myth. They are the spenders. They are not the spenders. These people who come to climb K2, thousands of foreigners come to climb our mountains. They live in tents. They don't even occupy one hotel room.
Right.
And they will live for 3 months in a tent. So they are not contributing
Right.
anything to the economy. And a Pakistani family leaves from Faisalabad and they get onto the motorway. And in 2 hours after breakfast, they've ordered lunch for 20 people at
Right.
Bhera stopover or something. So I think we need to dispel these myths. Nobody is against foreigners. And I think foreigners contribute to your tourism profile. But it's inaccurate to believe that they will support your tourism. Your tourism will always be supported by domestic people. If you can, and look at the numbers, you have 230 million. You know, about a year, about 6, 8 months ago, you remember we had a fiasco in Murray,
Right.
right? Uh, that was because there were too many people. You know, there were 40,000 cars there. So what did you want? 4 foreigners there also? You know, you got to deal with your own people first. We have, mashallah, plenty of people. Tourism now is becoming more and more domestic for 2 or 3 reasons. First of all, it is now very, very excruciatingly expensive to travel abroad. It's not that easy. I was trying to book a ticket today for London, and I was horrified. You know, a ticket that cost me 100,000 rupees by Qatar Airways 3 months ago is now 330,000 rupees. So, then what's happened is that COVID hit you. Then the travel overseas has become, so people in Pakistan now have no option but to travel within the country, which is a beautiful country. So we have a lot of demand of tourism. You
Right.
don't need people. You just need to look after them. And
Right.
if you look after them, and if you make, let me tell you, when I was in government, uh, we had a demand for 80,000 Sikh people, 80,000 to visit Kartarpur and Panja Sahib and Nankana Sahib. Harun, out of those 80,000, if we allow 4,000 to enter the country, Lahore will collapse. Because how many five-star rooms do you have in Lahore? You can
Right.
count them on your fingertips.
Right.
So, yeah, there are 80,000 Sikhs waiting to come to Pakistan. You can't even handle 2,000.
Right.
So it's not a numbers game. It's you being able to handle them. So that's the issue.
Okay, AJ, one more thing where I want some clarity from you, and that is in the last government, we saw a lot of focus on privatization of tourism. And we have a very long history of state-owned assets where, we had this whole chain of motels, which were like kept up by the government, and, they were good or bad, they were playing a part. You take that out, and then you can't go to Mastooj and look for a hotel, which is a private hotel, and would still offer you a clean room at the end of the day and hot water. So, what do you say about that? Do you think it was a wise approach, and what are the pros and cons of doing that?
Well, let me tell you what we did before I left the government. All PTDC motels have been handed over to the provinces. Oh. Whichever province has PTDC motels, we transferred the deed to the province under one condition, that within 3 months, that provincial government needs to give those motels to the private sector. It is not the government's job to run hotels. First of all, they don't know how to. How does a government servant run a hotel? It's like you asking a government servant to become a doctor or run a hospital. It's a skill. So The rule which was made in PTI government, and I'm sure the current government will see it through, is that the governments will not be involved in any tourism investment. The provincial governments and the federal government will become facilitators to the private sector. They will ensure that they give all the facilities to the private sector, but they will not engage in business. It is not the government's business to be in business. So all PTDC motels, as we speak, GB has completed the process. GB has already given the motels out, Gilgit-Baltistan, to the private sector.
I see.
KP, the process is continuing. And within 2 months, KP will hand over all the. So these motels will eventually land up in private businesses' hand. Now, when it will come in private business hand, first of all, the private business will spend money on these motels and improve the quality of them because they want to make money. And then the private business will employ professional people to run the hotels. The government cannot employ professional people. The government used to post their own people. So that is happening. So no government involvement in any tourism business. Okay. Only government will facilitate people like you or anybody from the private sector, foreign investors. I was dealing, and a lot of foreign investors are interested and they're still coming to Pakistan to look at various options for tourism. And I'm sure the current government will also welcome them.
But AJ, tell me, when you let the private sector actually take over and drive your industry, it in all sort of goodwill, it sounds great. But then how do you make sure that areas which have not been explored yet, or areas which don't have the facilities but require more investment, then they would immediately, in the short term, start giving you returns for. How do you make sure that you are actually also focusing on those? And I'm talking about the south side, because we talk a lot about the potential of the northern areas, but our south has great tourism potential as well, religious tourism, ecotourism, and so on. But it has never been exploited, even when we were sort of tightly controlling it through government agencies. So now, how do you see it ever actually, sort of exploiting tourism potential?
Okay, let me tell you what the South's issue is. Tourism in Pakistan is a family activity. Very seldom do does the man go on his own or the wife go on it. It's a family activity. You take the kids with you, okay? The kids can only go in the summer. In the summer, 80% of Pakistan is insufferable. You cannot go there. And I don't care how beautiful it is. If it's 45 degrees, you will not get there.
Of course, of course.
The problem is our timing. In the winter months, the South, Punjab, even Balochistan is stunningly beautiful. But in the winter months, the window of school holidays and college holidays is very small. So if you have 15 days off, an average family will not leave the house. Why? Because costs of travel are very high. And
Right.
when you are incurring that cost, you say, कि चलो यार मैं एक महीना लगा के तो आऊं ना, I want to spend some time there. So we have, even if you, even before I arrived, my predecessor, we have made, they made actually a 10-year tourism strategy for Pakistan. It's made, printed, it's ready to be launched. And that tourism strategy is an outstanding piece of work. The reason is that my predecessor, Mr. Zulfi Bukhari, he engaged the entire tourism, people, stakeholders to make that strategy. So in that NTCB, which I was the chairman of, you had people like Beram Awari and Kamran Lishari, and all the specialists and the travel agents, and they got together and they've made the strategy for Pakistan. So the people who are involved for the first time, they made the strategy rather than some government officer sitting in the secretariat. Okay.
Right.
Now, in that strategy, the South is of a big focus. But like I told you, the South has its issues. I'll give you an example. In Mangla, I think the Malaysians, or they came and they made a beautiful, tried to make a beautiful resort, and it never took off because Mangla Lake is burning hot, and you just cannot go there. And there's no point going on holiday where you have to sit inside a room with your air conditioner on. Okay,
Right.
so that is an issue. The other issue is, your question was that what about low flying areas, where that's where the government comes in. So if you are going to an area which doesn't have investment or doesn't have a motel, then all the more reason the government's job is to make it attractive for the private sector to go there. Okay, so if, let's say, in a remote corner of KPK, there's a beautiful place where there are no hotels, that doesn't mean the government starts running them, because then we will create another PTDC. What it means is that I go to the private sector and I say, okay, the land cost in Naran is this much. If you go build here, I will give it to you at 50% of the cost. I will give you Bijli at 50% of the cost. I will give you a tax exemption for the next 10 years for your property. That's how you invite private sector. You do not start doing it yourself. Because if you do it yourself, you're just spelling disaster. Because that thing will come up, it will be set up, and it will be run to the ground, like what we saw in all the PTDC motels. They were in the most beautiful areas, the most beautiful locations, but why did they run to the ground? Because the wrong people were managing them. So yes, there are some areas that require more incentives, but that's the answer. You give more incentives, you do not start doing it yourself. It is not the government's job to run these businesses. You formulate a policy where people are encouraged to come and do it. That's the government's job. And make that policy so attractive that anybody saying, yeah, yes, these numbers make sense to me, I'll make a hotel here or I'll do whatever. That's the answer.
Okay, interesting. Because I always questioned this approach and thought that, what about Balochistan? It has such stunning views, such stunning vistas, and we have never even exploited it to any
But
extent.
look, those stunning vistas look fantastic in a picture. And that's all you've seen. You've seen those vistas on Instagram. I would advise you to go to Balochistan and look at that vista, and you'll come back, medium rare to well done. So that's the reality. It's unfortunate, and the window of the good weather is so small that people don't travel south. Although I would love them. Now, for example, we were working on, like, the Nile cruise. We were working on the Chenab cruise and the Indus cruise, right? You have a 3-hour cruise where you serve dinner on the boat and you tell historical stories. And I was speaking to some foreign investors. But again, you can have a cruise where the weather is nice. You can't be physically sweating and enjoy a cruise, right? The first thing of tourism is that you need to be physically comfortable. I lived in America. If you look at all the ski resorts in America where I was living, they have one thing in common. The daytime temperatures are very high. And that's why skiing is possible. If it's minus 20 degrees at 12 o'clock in the afternoon, who will ski? Which mother will allow their kid to go out at minus 20? So
Right.
there are much bigger mountains in America, but only the ones that have high daytime temperature, only they become ski resorts. So that's why you'll hear of Aspen and Steamboat Springs and Whale and Mammoth Mountain. All these things have one thing in common. Their daytime temperature is very high and their nighttime temperature is low.
Right.
So at nighttime, when it's freezing, you are in the comfort of your room. And when you're skiing in the morning, you have very comfortable temperature. So that's the advantage. And so unless you're physically comfortable, you cannot enjoy your holiday. Whether it's extreme cold or extreme heat, you have to be physically comfortable. That's the essence. And that's why Pakistan misses out on all these beautiful places in the Punjab, in Sindh, in Balochistan that are beautiful. There's no doubt about that. And I've been to all of them, but they're just inaccessible. They're not very tourist friendly.
Right. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the people. You talked about, this myth that we have that, Pakistanis are generally very hospitable people, and, we have this great tradition of hospitality, and we keep hearing about how we were once on a trail where, people would come in and foreigners would come in and people would open their homes. And we see a little bit of that in the northern areas where, we have places in Gilgit where foreigners have been coming and staying. Uh, is there have we lost that openness at
No,
some level?
no, we haven't. Look, when I say that people, the myth, it doesn't mean that people are not hospitable, right? It's just that we are very limited and restrictive in our hospitality. And you pointed out Gilgit and Hunza, and you will see hospitality. You will not see the same hospitality in Murray,
Right.
right?
True.
So if you are in Murray, the chances are somebody will rip you off, right?
Right.
Now, it's the same country. It's the same country, but with a different culture. So, and the reason for that, Harun, is that we need to train people. It doesn't happen by itself. And therefore, I set up the Hashoo School of Tourism, then I set up the Akhuwat School of Tourism, and tourism schools are coming up in Pakistan, and they are very, very important. You need people to be trained to be hospitable. वो naturally नहीं होता. Naturally, you only are hospitable to people you know or people you like. I I was lecturing at a university the other day. I said, you travel by coach from Islamabad to Lahore. How many times have you said hello to the guy sitting in the seat next? They will never say hello. They will open their phones. And for 4 hours, they'll be on social media, and then they'll get off when Lahore arrives. So, yes, we are hospitable to the people that we like. Tourism is about being hospitable to total strangers. That's what tourism is, because every tourist is a stranger to you. He's not related to you, he's not your friend, and he's a stranger. So, but it doesn't happen by itself. When you talk of tourism-friendly countries like the Maldives, even Dubai and all, they are full of trained people. You go to a hotel in Dubai, those guys are not off the street to look after you. They've got degrees in hotel management, they've got experience in hotel management, and they look after you. So, yes, we have the natural friendliness, lekin by itself, it doesn't work. You need to create the professionalism. Now, that kid who's serving you in a restaurant, he could be a very nice kid and he could be a very friendly kid. If he's holding your glass the wrong way and he's got his finger inside the glass, it doesn't matter how nice he is. And the poor kid doesn't know any better. He's not been trained.
Trained. Right.
So
Right.
that's where I came from. That I said that you need to train our youth, and we need to train our youth, and then this youth will then become tourist managers. It is not a natural thing. You are a Bakar Yunus and Imran Khan catches you bowling at 100 miles an hour and then you become a test player. Those things do happen, but they're very rare.
Right.
You have to have a structured training program. And I am happy to report to you that across Pakistan, tourism schools are coming up. People are realizing that, yes, this is a skill that has to be learned. It is not a skill you are born with. Okay, it
Right.
still has to be learned, and there's a lot of work going on in this area.
Okay. AJ, one more thing. Before we move on from tourism to other topics, my last question would be on cultural and religious tourism. I know that, during the last government's time, we did a lot of work on religious tourism, especially when it comes to Sikh community and, bringing them to Kartarpur and so on. But how do you view the potential of these two aspects of the tourism spectrum?
Obviously, they're very, very promising. Like I said, Harun, it is not the potential. It is your ability to look after the potential. That's the problem. We just keep crying about potential, potential, potential. Potential exists. Can you look after it? Can you look after 80,006? You can't look after 1,000.
Right.
So it is not a demand issue. It's a supply issue. We need to be now, if you, after this program finishes, do a research and find out how many five-star hotels they are in Lahore and how many rooms they are. And you can count them on your fingertips,
Right.
right? So you PC has 600, the Avari has 150, 200, that's 800. And you add everybody else combined, you add another 800. That's 1,600 rooms, okay? Where will you put 80,006?
Right.
And those 1,600 rooms are not empty.
Right.
Half of them are full because there's other business there as well. They're not waiting for the six to arrive. So the commercial people are staying in the hotel, the office people are staying in the hotel. So out of those 1,600 rooms, at any given time, 800 will be available because there'll be 50% occupancy of the city. So
Right.
if 800 rooms are available, you tell me how will you accommodate 2006?
Mm.
So issue is not numbers. And this is what I had explained to the Prime Minister, Keji, we should stop running after people. The ones who are coming, are we looking after them in a pristine and befitting manner? Because if that person goes back happy, he will send 10 people to you. You don't even have to ask those 10 people to come because everybody now is depending on third party chatter.
Right.
If the government says that, Naran is a beautiful hotel, people will not listen. If you go tell 10 friends that I was there and you have to go there, those 10 friends will show up.
Right.
But for that to happen, we need to look after you, right?
Right.
When you leave a happy person, only then will it happen, sir. A foreigner, a foreigner lands at one of our airports, the first thing that happens is the taxi drivers rip them off.
Right.
Welcome to tourism. So tourism doesn't work this way, okay? So yes, there is a lot of potential, but like I said, you are lucky that you have an indigenous population that will always give you that supply.
Right.
वो हमेशा demand आपको मिलती रहेगी because you have 230 million people, for God's sake. You are not Maldives or
Right.
Dubai who's depending on other people to come. You are Pakistan. India doesn't depend on foreign tourism. Yes, it has a lot of foreign tourism, but if today not a single foreigner visits India, they'll have 1 billion people going on holiday, Indians. So that's where we need to start. And then, of course, like I said, that the foreigner is always the cherry on the cake. But
Right.
make the cake first.
Interesting. Acha sir, chale, let's change the topic and let's talk a little bit about music. Uh, what's generally on your playlist? What kind of music? Which artists do you listen to?
Yeah, there was a time when I started playing. Of course, I started playing when I was 18, 19, and I started with guitars. And when you are in 18, 19-year-old and in my age group, so your idols were Led Zeppelin and Deep Purple and, guys like this. So that's where all of us started, and Santana. But as I grew older, and then, of course, your ears become a lot softer and you don't want to hear all that. And then I shifted to keyboards. And for the last 25, 30 years, I've been playing keyboards. And I've played them at a very reasonable standard. But these days, I'm mostly into Indian and Pakistani music. I'm into Eastern music. Yes, if somebody says, Keji, play Sounds of Silence, I'll play Sounds of Silence. But, and first of all, I don't get to play music that much. Although I always have a keyboard in my room,
Okay.
and it's always there. So anytime I'm lying in bed, I get up, I put on my headphones, and I start playing. And but my first go-to music is always Indian or Pakistani music. There was a time I used to play a lot of ABBA, and I used to play a lot of other stuff, which I still do, but mostly it's Indian, Pakistani. So yeah, it's a big stress reliever for me when I come back from work and I'm all stressed up. Before I confront the family, I play 20 minutes of music. So I sort of subside and my stress subsides. So yeah, it's a good go-to for me. Yeah.
So when you say Indian and Pakistani, which artists, which composers do
Yeah,
you?
mostly old songs. I just find that the modern songs, however nice they must be, Harun, they have a very limited shelf life. In 1 week, my kids used to come about 5 years ago and say, Abba, play this song. And I have a habit of doing a song really well. I mean, I have to, I don't do any shortcuts. And by the time I had the song ready, they weren't interested in the song anymore because a week had passed.
Right,
And that fad, and they had deleted it off their phones. So I said,
right,
about who listens to that anymore? I said, I've been working day and night for your song. In our times, you'll still remember Pal Pal Dil Ke Paas, but you won't remember Munni Badnaam Hui,
uh, uh,
because Munni Badnaam Hui or Munni Nek Ho Gayi, and within a matter of 1 month, Munni
there's
came and
another.
she left.
There's
Yeah,
another.
there's another. And then Sheila arrives, and then
Yeah.
Sheila Johan ho gayi. So these songs are fun. I mean, I'm nobody to, be judgmental. They are a lot of fun, but somehow they don't stick with you.
Right,
And the songs in the 70s and the 80s, and as a matter of fact, my kids actually sing the 70s and 80s songs. That was about, 20 years before they were born. So I just play, old Pakistani and Indian songs. I just feel that their lyrics were better, their music composition was better. They were softer in that composition. They were not bang bang and all that. So yeah, that's a personal preference for me.
okay. Um, and how do you view Coke Studio? There's a lot of talk about Coke Studio and what it's doing
Okay,
to the
Coke
music. It's
Studio.
a bit political also. It's a bit
I
political
am
also.
biased. I'm biased on Coke Studio because Ruhail Hayat is a nephew.
Oh,
And
okay,
Ruhail started Coke Studio, and I'm also from the Hayat family. It's
okay.
just that my mother was a Hayat, so I don't carry the Hayat name.
I see.
So Ruhail, I remember when he started music, and I used to, help the vital signs, and I used to, because I was the elder brother, and all these kids used to be. A lot of times they were at my house, and I was at their house. So I really mentored, Rohail and Salman and Junaid. So I have a lovely relationship with them, and Rohail, of course, is very, very talented arranger.
Of
And
course.
I have, to be very honest, I have loved Coke Studio always, because I think Coke Studio keeps changing their people who do Coke Studio. Rohail did it, and then the strings came, and Bilal did it, and then after that, somebody else did it, and then the last season, Zulfi did it. Although I don't know Zulfi, but he did a wonderful job. So yeah, I love Coke Studio. I think Coke Studio is very innovative, and they have a nice mix of old songs with the new touch. And I'm a great fan of Coke Studio.
Okay. Acha, AJ, tell me a little bit about your work as a mentor, as a motivational speaker. We see that there's a lot of despondency in the youth. The future isn't looking very bright. There are many struggles, many challenges which weren't there a decade or two ago. The pressures are sort of crushing now, with the globalization setting in, and people being exposed to where the world is, but not being able to match the same standards. How have you seen the attitudes changing over these years,
Arun, I've been involved with the youth for about 30 years. Okay. And if I was to do a rough calculation, I have taught about 200,000 of them, okay, over my last 30 years. Uh, and I've done it as a service to Pakistan. I've never charged money for mentoring or teaching the youth. Um, I think the youth is coming up with a lot of problems and issues. But what I don't like in people like us doing is becoming judgmental and criticizing them, okay? Because the easiest thing to do is to condemn somebody, okay? Let me tell you of what I do on Twitter. If I post a comment on Twitter and a 18-year-old or a 17-year-old responds to me by abusing me, right? 99% of people would block him. Okay, he's very rude. How dare he abuse? I'm older than his father. I personally wouldn't do that. So what I do is I message him. I give him a direct message, and I give him my phone number, and I ask him to call me. And about 80% of them actually do call. The other 20% are probably too embarrassed to call. And the 80% that do call, I asked them, I said, why did you abuse me? Have you ever met me? Have I ever wronged you? And, within 2 or 3 conversations, I really feel that person has changed. And I then follow him on Twitter and I realize his tone has changed. So, yes, it's all very well to condemn them, but I think we as the elder generation, we have another responsibility that other than condemnation, which is the easiest thing to do, you need to play your part. Now, I can engage with 10 kids or 20 kids. I can't engage with 30 million kids, right? But at least I can say that, Harun, I've dealt with 30 and I've done my part. Now, somebody else deal with their 30. So, yes, they're a little. I have a big gripe against parents also, because parents in Pakistan over the last 10, 15, 20 years have become so obsessive with grades that they've forgotten everything else. How many A's did the kid have? And if the kid has 9 A's, in the next exam, he gets 8. All hell breaks loose in that house. So when you start telling your kid that B is not acceptable, you are not doing him any service, because he only has control over A's and B's while he's an academic. The minute he graduates from university, Harun, he comes to me to look for a job. And guess what happens in a job all day long? You deal with C's and D's. And every once in a while, an A will show up. But life is about C's. Life is never about A's. So if you actually, parents, make clones and teach their kids that anything other than an A is condemnable and it's not acceptable, the parents don't realize that how long can you do this to your child? A time will come, he will graduate and he will start looking for a job. Who will ensure, will the parents ensure that he'll get an A in work too? If he joins a bank and if he joins a foreign bank, they'll make him slave till 2 o'clock at night. And after that, he will not meet his targets. And then the regional vice president will come and give him shit and say, what the hell is going on? And this kid can't handle it because all he's got in his entire life are A's. So I think we must teach our kids how to lose.
Right.
And one of the things that taught us how to lose in our time, Harun, was sports. Sports teaches you how to lose. Sadly, sports is no longer a part of our education system anymore.
Right.
Except for a couple of schools like HM College, no school has sports. And school administrations think that sports has got something to do with physical fitness. By physical fitness, he can go to the gym as well. Sports have got to do with character building, with teamwork. And you keep losing and you keep getting up and you keep losing and you keep getting up. No other side of your life allows you to lose
Will
and
teach you that.
accepts
Yeah.
that loss. Yeah.
But
And so,
AJ, before we move any further, sorry for cutting you. Losing has become very expensive now. A student who's like even just to get to the undergrad stage, the parent is investing anywhere between 5 to 8 million, or even more in a child's education. So it's not like when we were studying, and most of us in Pakistan, we could afford to sort of just stumble along and make C's and D's. Now, with all that investment going in, you want returns for your child at least.
yeah, but the returns come when he's employed. The returns are not going to come when he's in university. So, what returns are you hoping for? There can be no returns in university. If he gets, a GPA of 3.9, it's still money going out.
Yeah,
The return comes when the kid comes and gets a good job and he starts doing well in his job. So if he's not pruned and prepared for that job, the return will never come. So if returns is your objective, then all the more reason you make sure that he's ready for the life after studies. If you don't prepare him for the real world, where will the return come from?
no, of course, of course.
He can score 100% in university. It's still a cost out. You're still paying for that 100%. The minute he graduates and he comes and he keeps looking for a new job, he finds a good job and he does well in life. That's where the return is done.
Right, right.
But if he's a misfit, if he finds it difficult to adjust, I get 20 a 27-year-old in my office for an interview, and at the age of 27, he's on his seventh job. So you tell me, will I employ him? I won't touch him with a 20-yard pole. I
True.
have changed two jobs in 45 years. So, and why are they changing jobs? Because they just cannot adjust. They feel, कि मेरा A कहाँ है? Where is my A? Because that's what I've gotten all my life. And this manager is giving me a C every day. I've never got a C in my life. So nobody is asking parents to accept failure. I am just saying that every now and then teach your kid to lose, because life, you cannot win unless you learn how to lose. You look at Imran Khan, he's lost more cricket matches than he's won. I was Pakistan's national double tennis championship. If you look at my CV, I've lost more matches than what I won. So if you don't know how to lose, Harun, how will you win? So don't tell your kids that losing is a bad thing.
Right.
You tell the kids that it's great that you're doing well, but do not condemn a loss. Because the minute you condemn a loss, what's the opposite of not knowing how to lose? Is winning at all costs. Now, that's a very, very dangerous thing to teach your kid, is that you have to win at all costs.
Acha, AJ, last question is about more the bigger picture. Uh, what has been the crisis for Pakistan? Why have we not been able to work it out? Do you think it's a crisis of governance? It's a crisis of morals? It's politics? What has let us down? What has not let us rise?
First of all, I'm not competent to answer this question. Believe me, I'm not. I'm telling you that I'm not skilled and I'm greatly handicapped by my knowledge. I can only answer you based on the life that I have led myself. Okay. And I am no authority on predicting how Pakistan will do, or analyzing why Pakistan has not done well. And all the reasons you've listed in your question, there's there's dishonesty, there's corruption, there's this, and there could be 100 other reasons, okay? Politics, everything. But so I'm not competent to answer that question. I'm a born optimist. I always feel that we will pull through. These are very tough and struggling years for the country. Um, and But like I said, that we will pull through. I think 65% of Pakistan is now under 35. Okay, now that's a huge percentage of young kids. Now,
Right.
young kids are fearless, they are wild, they are opinionated, which is a very good thing. Okay, we Babas are now not playing a role there, okay? And it's in their hands. So, yes, Pakistan has struggled, uh, and mostly for our own faults. It's very easy to blame everybody else, but we could have done a lot better. But inshallah, we will. I think Pakistan will pull through. And it's not about governments, or it's not about PTI or PMLN.
No,
I think the
no.
country has huge potential, and whoever's at the helm can pull Pakistan through.
Thank you so much, AJ, on this positive note and note of optimism. And I'm glad that you actually wrapped it up very well. That we are a very resilient people, and inshallah, we will pull this through, and we will do better. And we have a lot of promise in the youth population that we have.
Inshallah. Inshallah. Thank you, Harun. Thank
Thank
you.
you so much, AJ. Thank you for taking the time out.
My pleasure. My pleasure. My
Okay, bye
pleasure.
bye.
Bye.